Thank you for coming to the talk. I am a software engineer at Fielmann, and I'm presenting today on running an AI model like ChatGPT, but on your home computer. So right now, most of us use ChatGPT in, say, Google Chrome, and your request gets sent to a server in the United States. But what if you have no internet connection? What if you don't want your data to get sent to the US? What if you want to personalize your AI? Then you might want to run it on your own computer and have your own personal AI. So let's get started. So a quick intro about me. I am a full stack engineer for Fielmann. We are located on the first floor, and we're working on some really exciting stuff with AI. My job is to investigate how fast software teams can move using AI tools and to share that knowledge with the teams across Fielmann. So it's a fun role. I get to investigate and play with all the different tools and then find out what works best. So why would you want to run a personal AI when you already have the, ChatGPT in the browser, and we already have all of these AI tools already? For like I mentioned, first thing is customization. You can train your AI on your personal data without ever worrying about that data ending up anywhere else, which means you can put your personal medical data, you can put your financial data and get analysis from your AI model, and it will integrate perfectly with your work and personal life. And imagine if you use this model over many years, it's going to know you so intimately, it's going to be able to help you with anything that you need. Secondly, is personality. You can give your local model some personality. If you want it to be like Steve Irwin, if you want it to be like Dumbledore, you can choose whatever you want and have some personality with your model. Next is censorship. I know that a lot of AI providers, they do some censorship. You can remove that censorship, remove political biases, and just get the raw data, the raw answers that you want. Privacy, we've talked about. And finally, if you don't have an internet connection, then your LLM can run offline as well. Now, I was going to do a quick show of hands, but I realized we have 3 talks back to back that are going to cover an hour and a half. So in fact, I'm going to have everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. Get the blood moving. All right. Have a little stretch. Move around a bit. There we go. Stay standing up, please. If you've ever used AI before, if you've ever used ChatGPT, if I see one person sit down now, it's going to be quite concerning. Okay, please stay standing. What? Only if you are a daily AI user. If you're using AI every single day, stay standing up. Okay, most of the crowd. Please stay standing up if you've used very advanced technical features with AI, such as MCP servers, RAG, or multi-step workflows. Cool. So quite a few people sat down. And finally, if you've ever run an AI model on your own computer, then please stay standing up. Okay, cool. So we have about at least 10 people who actually run an AI model locally, which is pretty cool, actually. All right. So now I have an understanding of where we're at in terms of the knowledge. Please, yes, please sit down. So the real question is, why now? Why are we having this conversation now about even being able to run an LLM locally? Well, traditionally, prompts, when you quoted ChatGPT, when you go on the browser, you go, is it illegal in Italy to put pineapple on pizza? That prompt gets sent to a server in the United States or somewhere in Europe with Microsoft Azure. And the reason is because the computational power to run an AI model or even to process a prompt is massive. There are trillions of mathematical processing happening for even a very simple prompt such as this. The energy requirements are very large. But now, more recently, AI models are becoming much more efficient. And at the same time, our whole computers, particularly MacBooks or gaming computers, are really powerful. So we are at the great intersection of 2025, where the computational power required for LLMs has come down enough that we can run an LLM on a home computer. And we're seeing amazing innovations with the chip technology in NVIDIA. We're seeing people work on amazing stuff such as bit flipping in chips as well. And we're also seeing home computers get more and more efficient and powerful. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, there are loads of open source models I could have chosen for this demo. I've chosen to look at the two models provided by OpenAI simply because OpenAI is the most well-known and most widely used LLM provider. OpenAI offer two models, GPT OSS 20B and 120B. 20B you can run on a 16 gigabyte RAM laptop, and the equivalent cloud model would be O3 Mini. The 120B model requires a bit more of a beefy hardware setup of 256 gigabytes of RAM. So anybody running this is pretty much going to run it in a cloud server, right? So that means rent a server from Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or AWS, and then have your LLM run up there. The equivalent cloud model to 120B is GPT-4o. And I know a few companies actually have started using 120B on their own service, such as 11 Labs actually have started experimenting having 120B. So they have their own servers running with 120B, which means they don't rely on OpenAI. They don't rely on Google Gemini and so on. So we're starting to see companies use open source AI, and this is going to go, the adoption is going to go up and up from here. People want to save, companies want to save costs. Companies want to see, they want to protect their data. We're going to see hedge funds and financial institutions running open source LLMs, and medical institutions as well. And we're going to see individuals running more open source models as time goes on. Now, how do you get GPT OSS 20B on your computer? It's surprisingly easy. You don't even need to run any command line commands. 3-step installation. If you just visit olama.com and download it, it looks like this. This is Olama. It looks like the ChatGPT interface, and it pretty much operates exactly the same. You can see it's a bit stripped back. It doesn't have the same features such as agent mode or image input, but you can chat and interact with it just like you would any other AI model. So you download Olama, you select the model that you want, and you start prompting. I'm going to take a few seconds to show you exactly how that looks. And then when you get home, you might feel like experimenting yourself. So let's jump over here. In terms of installing a local model, it's pretty much handled for you. So I'm going to go new chat. I already have 20V downloaded. Let's say I want to install Google's Gemma 3 with 27 billion parameters, so a bit more power. Just click that, and then you can say anything. Let's just say test. And I don't have the model installed, so the installation starts automatically. You give it 5 minutes, it takes 16 gigabytes, and then you have a local running model. It's really as easy as that. So let's go back to using OSS, and we can say something like something related to Malaga. What do you want to know? What's the best beach in Malaga? What's the best beach in Malaga? And let's see how fast it runs. Yes, we have a Malagueña here. What is your opinion on the best beach in Malaga? Granada? No one... That's a bit of a trip. Come on. For an evening beach trip? El Palo, yep. Mass is go. Yes.
Players have main sounds student. So in the candidate is been here, so you know, come in the even somewhere. So using your state charge you building to something all the cats, confirmation, should give the way something and the future like was does like really insane business to me or like in Europe and books that so with this one that would means that my demon this was for all.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And you've raised a major disadvantage of actually running your own model locally. Two things I'll mention. So firstly, we do have web search capability.
right? So if I just turn on web search down here, we can get those up-to-date information. I've tested that on a couple of other prompts, like what's the news today in Malaga? Here it is. And it actually fetched headlines related to passengers being kicked off a plane in Madrid. Yeah, and Spanish protests, classic. So yeah, there we go. So you can get web search. In terms of updating the data, so that's one of the downsides of LLMs. We won't get updates automatically as what happens in the cloud. So when we're using, say, Google Gemini, one day it'll go from Gemini 2.0 to Gemini 2.5 without us having to do anything there. Here in open source, it's not like that. But fortunately, what you can do is you can very easily swap out models. So let's say you download 20B, right? This is your base model. And let's say you're technically inclined and you want to do some training on top of some fine tuning on top of your model. You can separate the base layer and the fine tuning layer using unsloth, and you can run fine tuning on top of this model, right? And get it how you like it. Let's say 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line, OpenAI put out a really much more powerful open source model that doesn't use much more resources. You're like, okay, I like the look of this model, but I've already pre-trained my open source model on my laptop and I like it. It's got a nice personality. It gives me the answers that I want. I don't want to swap it out. You can just swap out the base layer and reapply the fine tuning that you've already done. And you'll get back to the status that your model was at, but with a more powerful base layer. So that is possible. Have I done it myself? No. In the interest of time for researching this presentation, I can touch every single topic, but I know that it is possible if you want to do that. All right, let's do a side-by-side comparison. Like, I guess you're wondering, does the open source model run quickly? Does it run slow? Does it give the same kind of answers? I used the same prompt in the cloud and in Logia. In the cloud, I got the news back in 42 seconds. That's running on cloud hardware, very, very fast. Locally, it took about 3 minutes. I suspect that but the delay was more to do with processing the tokens than anything to do with internet connection. And so locally, the model does run slower. It's not really made for needing really, really quick responses. However, there are extremely lightweight models that you can download from Alibaba's Quinn, from Google, and so on, which will give you very fast answers, similar to Gemini Flash or GPT Fast. So they are out there. In terms of performance and capabilities, we'll quickly touch on the limitations, and then we'll feed into the capabilities of running your LLM locally. Limitations. There's no agent mode out of the box. And by agent mode, I mean when you go into GPT and select agent mode and it opens up an interactive browser and can start clicking around whatever you wanted to click around. That's not provided out of the box of open source models. It obviously makes sense that AI providers are going to provide open source models, which are very dialed back from what they're offering in the cloud for a paid service, right? It makes sense. Initial setup is very easy, but customization involves technical complexity. I don't imagine that the average person in the industry is ever going to download an open source model, let alone start RAG and fine tuning. So there is some technical complexity involved. There are no automatic updates, such as we would get in the browser, as we talked about. And there is the energy and computation cost for running a model locally. When I ran those prompts on my local model yesterday, I noticed that the Mac would freeze for about 10 seconds while processing the initial prompt. So there is a performance cost. In terms of the capabilities and what you can do, it's really around privacy and personalization and just doing something cool on your laptop. The models offer smart reasoning, particularly the OpenAI models. So it will adjust the computing power based on the complexity of the prompt that you've given it. So if you ask a very simple prompt, it's not going to use many computing resources. If you ask for deep analysis, it's going to fire up the resources to give you the answer in a good time. You do get complete privacy, so any financial medical data stays on your home laptop, no external service. Full customization, unique personality, and there are some agentic capabilities. So it can do web browsing, Python tool use, and there is great, and there is support for coding as well. And there are some pretty good coding models out there. Now, before I wrap things up, I will say that at Fielmann, we are hiring and we are looking for software engineers who enjoy using AI and want to use AI more. We have our office on the first floor, and if you're interested in joining our team, then please speak to our hub manager, Renki. He's just sat at the back there with the blonde hair, and he can help you get started. So I want to say thanks everybody for coming. Thank you for listening, and I'd like to look forward to any questions. If anyone have any questions, then we have some gifts. Okay, we have some gifts for the questions. So anybody asking a question, you guess a gift. Yes, sir.
Curiosity. Can my home get some small match journey? CNC as they see this afternoon. I mean, get in train. This night long.
It takes place in the hardware.
In the hardware, yes, yeah. Så det var så train. Và den måde det som regel kom præge på skæng, så vi er der sen sig nej. Men skal I måtte det overvis. He's really on the button.
Absolutely right. It would require an NVIDIA GPU, most definitely, or a very, very beefy setup. We were actually investigating yesterday. Got some of my colleagues at the back there. We were looking at some of Apple's offerings in terms of the iMac Studio, and we got the M3 Max now as well. To get the kind of hardware that you want to do any fine-tuning or training, it costs about 10K in terms of material cost, if you're buying from Apple or NVIDIA. So yeah, it's not cheap. Yeah. Fraser, can I hand it to you to hang to the gentleman, please?
Question. I can't realize I'm something very actually. Maybe a silly options being genitals. No, pussy. Please, there should be a browser. Yeah, they are like optimized connection. So how do they done that on even that? Was it? Was I using your thought? Dumbbells, you know, I'm putting a note when you're not wrong.
He's still satisfied to have that. Så det still overleg jeg aktuelt den. That the from what you said like the not that one outdated but it still keeps that things like not the phrase.
Yeah, so any model is trained on data up to a fixed state, and then they call that the data cut of the.
Yeah.
So I'm more on.
No, I don't think they're updating GPT OSS 20B. They released it in July. August, sorry. So it's very, very recent. It's quite recent on the train bit. As far as I know, they're not putting new training data. They'll probably in 6 months release a newer open source model with more up-to-date data. That's all.
How? You kind of learned it did what course it does.
Yeah. Awesome.
So just you it's
Thank you. No, nothing more to add there. Yeah, so training data gets frozen. What you can do is obviously add your own data with using RAG, fine-tuning, and so on. Yes, sir.
So you're saying the models already updated, right? And you have like projects. Is there a way to transfer these projects and you wrap some of one model the next one? Because it's possibly one shit.
Yes, as far as I know, you can take, let's say you're doing fine-tuning, right? Let's say that's your way of inserting your information into the model. You can take the snapshot of the fine-tuning you've applied, like take it off the top of this model and drop it onto the top of that model. Apply the fine-tuning again. It will require some expensive hardware to do that. But yes, it is blessing. I don't recommend using fine-tuning. I recommend using RAB, right? So have a vector database with the information personalized to you, or maybe as whatever data you need for work, and use the vector database, because that's not going to require
any 10K setup. You can actually do it for free using Superbase. I've done it. So yeah, that's a much more economical way of making sure your data doesn't get lost, and you don't want to lose your progress, basically. So yeah, get started with.
When you run Orama, is it possible to use it no camera or you need to coffee?
Yeah, I'll show you that. Actually, it provides some options. Yes, actually, you can do that. Actually, what we did earlier is I had this model running local, and then I opened up Cursor, and in Cursor you can add a custom model, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. Settings. You can actually add a custom model, right, down here. And I actually added GPT OSS 20B, which is somewhere on the list. There it is. And actually was able to make requests to, so the requests are very lightweight. Yes, it does. It starts a local host server. You need ngrok to tunnel there through the browser. But it does work, you know. Unfortunately, it's not great for coding at 20 billion parameters. I was looking at some of the coding models. They start at around 350 billion parameters. Most of them are in the hundreds of billions, like 600 to 700 billion. To get this back and forth, thinking and applying changes to many files in your code base needs a lot of parameters to get that working. For junior programmers, yeah. So in terms of Orlama, if I just jump to the settings, you can choose to expose Orlama to the network or disable it, depending on your privacy. You can choose the context length, and that's pretty much about it in terms of configuration through the UI. Any software engineers in the crowd, you can use Docker with one-click installation to download a model as well. And I would also recommend LM Studio is your third option. So LM Studio, Orlama, and Docker. Exactly. Cool. Looks like we're good for questions for now. Thank you, everybody, and see you there.